Hello, everyone. It's Michelle Valberg here. And I firstly want to just say I hope you're all safe and healthy during this pandemic and that you're staying creative and getting yourself out there as much as you can in your backyards, close to home, and maybe photographing some little animals or people, your family, whatever it might be. So I'm going to be talking about creating emotional impact. And I think that is relevant for every aspect of photography. And I think that creating emotional impact is the keystone to really, really great photos. So I'm going to start with a really beautiful quote that I saw, and I think it's relatable to, as well, all aspects of photography. Each animal we encounter has the potential to become part of us or part of who we could become if we meet them halfway, by Richard Love. So I've had a lot of amazing experiences in my career as a wildlife photographer. I have been face-to-face with grizzly bears. I have been in close contact, not contact, but in close proximity to black bears, to the spirit bear, which is one of the most unbelievable experiences that I've ever had. I have been close to polar bears, probably a little too close for comfort in this scenario. I don't recommend it to anyone. Everyone came out well. Nobody was harmed, the animals or ourselves. I have been very close to a herd of 10,000 walrus. I have swam in the Arctic Ocean with narwhal, something I never in a million years thought I would ever be able to even say. I've swam with humpback whales. That's me on the bottom left. Pretty amazing opportunity and experience, mind-blowing. But one of the best places that I love to photograph and is my own backyard. And whether it's in the city of Ottawa or it's on our lake in Sherwood, Lake Ontario, I take my kayak out all the time with my gear, super safe. I have a sturdy fishing kayak, so I feel safe at all times. But, when we're housebound or we're confined and we're not able to travel to these exotic places, which I've been so fortunate to be able to do, I just find as much as I can around me. And if we look a little bit closer, sometimes we can find some magic right in front of us. So one of the benefits of being at home and not traveling everywhere is the amount of time that I've had to explore the areas around my own backyard, around my own house. And ultimately, what I'm always trying to do is connect with the animals, which means I'm connecting with my viewer. I want it to be relatable. I want it to be engaging. I want, when people are looking through the phone and they're thumbing through the images on Instagram, I want them to stop. I want them to stop at my images and spend time with them. Ultimately, as visual storytellers, that's what we want, right? We want people to spend time with our images and maybe create their own story within. So one day, my husband and son and I were walking the dog. And of course, they're always on alert for me because any kind of wildlife, whether it's animals or small creatures or birds, they're always saying, "Oh, Michelle," and pointing them out. And we were walking down and my husband said, "Look, there's a fox." And it was just off of the road, not very far off of or from our house at all. And he says, "Oh, there's some kits. She has kits." And they were playing in the yard. And if you had seen me, I just bolted back home. I grabbed my Z6, I grabbed the 500 millimeter, I stuck it on the camera, and I ran back. And of course, as soon as I got there, they had disappeared. But that just made me, okay, I can go back and I can photograph them actually from the car, from the road, in a safe distance and without spooking them. And also, when you're spending time with these animals, they have to kind of get to know you a little bit. A lot of times when we're photographing people, it's kind of the same thing, You just show up and you have to have that connection. Ultimately, we're always looking for that connection. So I went out that night, and I went at dusk, and I found the fox, and they were playing. The light wasn't great. I had the 800 millimeter. I put the 2x extender on. I stayed at the car. I used the beanbag. I wasn't interfering, and I was really intrigued by their behavior and trying to capture them. I just get so immersed and kind of obsessive about trying to create that magical experience. And there's so much activity that goes on between these animals and the mom and the kits. And I watched her bring a mallard duck. I watched her bring a gray squirrel, a black squirrel, a red squirrel, a robin, a cardinal. Each day I went out early in the morning and late in the day, and I started to watch their behavior. And that's one of the things that, if you have that time and that opportunity, spending time with the animals to watch their behavior, not just taking a photo, but creating photos and creating that story. And then waiting and anticipating for that beautiful light, and making sure that you're in that opportunity, that you're taking that time to go out, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting up at those hours that you might necessarily not want to, and waiting for things to happen, and watching and waiting and anticipating. And it's amazing when you have those opportunities and you spend time. And during COVID-19, I was able to. I mean, this is something that I would have never seen in my own backyard, because I was so busy going to work and doing or traveling and not in my own community. And watching the behavior and waiting for them to make a pounce, and seeing how these kits were learning how to do and hunt for themselves. And then watching the behavior between the mom and the kits as well. Super fun. And just waiting for that light to magically hit her eyes, or that beautiful connection that we have between these two animals, between that mother and that kit. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, finding fox isn't exactly, I've been living in this neighborhood for a very long time. I've never seen or had this opportunity before. But even the small creatures, go out and photograph the squirrels. I couldn't believe this. This is when I was testing the D850. And my son said, "Mom, there's a squirrel and her babies in the tree." So I ran, I got my camera, came out, and just waited for her to be comfortable enough with me. And then she ran up on the deck and then showed herself to me, very curious, obviously, with the little one behind. And what I loved most about this photo, I think, is that I never knew that squirrels breastfed. So anyway, it's kind of funny. Anyway, so you never know what you're going to see in your own backyard. When I'm on the lake and I'm in my kayak, what I love about the new 500 millimeter PF is that it is so light and so easy to navigate. And I know I'm taking a risk going out in my kayak, but I don't go out when it's wavy or inclement. I might go out when it's raining, but I certainly don't go out when there's a massive amount of waves or whitecaps. And oftentimes I will get up at the ungodly hour, 4:30 in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, and get out there on my kayak and discover new behavior, new animals that I've never even seen on the lake before. And the most unbelievable opportunity that I think I have on the lake is to actually see the loon chicks, and to see them from their first day, and then their behavior on the mom's back. But this takes time. Like, there's so many images that I've taken in order to achieve these images. And, it's so important to constantly, continue your craft and to go out there all the time and create as much as you possibly can. With digital, it's so easy now. Imagine with film, we had to be very calculated. We had 12 exposures, 24, 36. We had to be calculated and really know our cameras. Now we have the opportunity to see our exposure, especially with the mirrorless, right in front of us. And when that light is changing first thing in the morning, you're able to see how it's working with your subject. So again, it's the connection. I'm on connection. I'm talking about this relating, and I think all of us, it's like this swan is relating to its cygnets and protecting them. And that's what I'm always trying to achieve. And looking at ways that they're interacting with each other, looking at different angles, being low to the ground. I'm always going low as much as I can. With a flip screen on the new mirrorless or the D850 or 750, it's so amazing to be able to go low, be able to take that flip screen out and really get intimate with the animals. Sometimes it's the unlikely pairing of that you're not expecting to see, like a bee and a butterfly. The painted butterfly was saying to the bee, not a chance. This is what I'm saying to myself. What other people might do is spend time with that image and create their own story. And ultimately, for me, that's what I want my viewers to do. Sometimes it's that unlikely pairing that is kind of cool as well. I found this the other day. I went to Africa in February, very fortunate to be able to have this experience before COVID hit, and to be safe and to have traveled and to have had this experience. My family came with me, a wonderful group with us. And I haven't even been able to get through a lot of my images, but I found this one the other day and I posted it just like, hey, checking in on you, and making sure everybody's doing okay at this time. Again, it's that connection between a mom and its baby, and that touch, the way that the hand is sitting on the head, just like this colobus monkey as well with its baby, high up in the trees. Very difficult lighting, especially with a dark, a black and the whites. But it's that hand on the baby's head that just really pulls it together, and that she's looking off, like protection. We ultimately always want to be protected. We are humans. I mean, this is what we want. We want that protection. We want to feel loved. For the first time, I saw the giraffes necking, the power and the glory of seeing this interaction between these two males. This younger one was just hammering the bigger one, and I had never seen this behavior before, so it was so incredibly special. And what I did with this one is I actually did video in slow motion because I wanted to see that power. And it's not always easy to know if you should be shooting photo or shooting video. But if you have an opportunity and there's some time, take your photo, get the shot, and then work your way into video and capture this motion, because it just brings it all home. The hippos and watching them in the water, watching them interact with each other, the males fighting, the babies with the moms. Again, just waiting and anticipating. They go under the water and then they come up. So I was waiting for them to go under and then just rise up again, because that is when I found that there was the most action. Flamingos, there weren't a lot of them when we were in the Gorogoro crater, but there were clumps of them. And what I loved about this is just the four of them and how they were interacting with one another, and they were feeding and just waiting for those head positions to be perfect. It probably took about 30 shots to get this one that I was happy with, the way that all of their heads were positioned. So again, it might be 2, 3, 4, a large herd of any kind of animal, and really interesting to see how you can create and get those heads in the right position, let's just say. Watching the elephants with their babies and how beautiful and tender and majestic and powerful these beasts are. Oh my goodness, it's incredible to watch them. But when they interact with each other with their trunks, it's just that love, that protection, that connection that I'm always looking for. So I will constantly be looking for this when I'm shooting, but when I'm actually going through my photos, these are the ones that you'll see me post most often on my social media. We saw hundreds of thousands of wildebeest, hundreds of thousands. We were right in the middle of the migration. It was unbelievable. What an incredible gift. But there were so many, and you could take a wide-angle landscape to try to show what it was like to see that many animals in one place. But then I tried with my longer lens. I had the 800, I had the 500. I wanted to show closer, intimate portraits of these animals together. And again, their interaction with one another, whether they had babies, whether it's the males, how they all ran together. So really getting in tight. And I think it's important for any kind of image that you have, or a story that you have, what the environment looks like, but also then going in closer to your subjects as well. And this one, it's a connection between an animal and people. And it was when we arrived in Uganda and saw a bird stopped, and then our guide said, "There's a hippo." And we looked to our left, and there was a hippo off the road in the bush eating grass during the day, in the midday. And so there was a man walking up, so we were waving to him. I mean, these are the most dangerous animals in Africa. There's more killings by hippos than there are any other animals. And he was massive. And so we were photographing in the bush, and then all of a sudden he just started walking down the road. And he's walking to these people. But what we didn't know is that the creek or the river or the water where he was going was right off to the left. So where that puddle is, he just walked right in and got off of the road. But we were so scared because this road was so incredibly busy. But we were also looking at these people going helpless, going, "Oh my God, get off the road." So it's, again, a connection, not necessarily with two animals, but between a person and an animal as well. I was in Newfoundland and photographing the gannets. Again, a massive colony, flying birds everywhere, so much action. And as photographers, you just want to capture everything. And as you arrive and you set up and then you're overwhelmed with so much wildlife, it's important to just, allow yourself to see, to breathe, and then maybe photograph the whole, but then get intimate and get closer if you can, if you have a longer lens, and try to find that interaction, that intimacy between the large colony this into a smaller grouping. Maybe it's these two were mating. And then they started feeding. One was trying to build the nest, and then ultimately I found a beautiful chick, and then just watched the mom feed the baby. It was days old, if not a day old. But again, I had to really look and really pay attention to the surroundings, to the behavior, and really look. And I also, to stay a distance, I needed a long lens. So I was shooting with the 800 millimeter, which is absolutely fantastic and a treat. But again, you need to have access, but 2 times extenders, 1.4 extenders if you have a 300 or a 70 to 200 to get a little bit closer. You might want to try using some extenders if you don't have access to the longer lens as well. On Sable Island, an amazing experience with Adventure Canada a number of years ago. And wow, to see wild horses in our own country on this secluded island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, not far off of the coast of Nova Scotia. To see these animals in the wild, again, trying to find more than just one, but that interaction, that beauty, that connection. And because this section is called Connections, that's what it's all about, like looking at how they interact with one another. Grizzly bears, these were mating bears. It was beautiful to watch how they interacted with one another, how whatever the female did, the male followed, and eventually they did the deed. And she wasn't very happy, but I don't have those to show. Just amazing to be able to be in that opportunity, into that experience, and in their environment to watch them. Wow, what an incredible gift, and I never ever take it for granted. I've had so many amazing opportunities. Grizzly bears, males, young, juveniles, sparring away, not very far from us at all. Here's a spirit bear with a black bear. This is Ma. She did not want to have anything to do with any other bears, and this male was just riding her. He just kept wanting to bug her and walk up to her, and she just gave it to him. So again, it's not always that beautiful fun, but it's that it can be also an aggressive kind of behavior as well that is really interesting and fascinating to photograph. Seeing the cubs, newborn cubs, and how they're curious about us and how mom is standing at attention. And then this grizzly is in the Great Bear Rainforest with its cub and teaching him how to feed off of the salmon as she would bring him up, the salmon up to feed on. Really interesting to watch and beautiful. A cub going up, again, that touch, that connection between these two. We're all sons and daughters, and whether you've had a good relationship with your parents or not so good, still you might have your own children, and I think we can all relate to this in some way. And And I'll never get tired of watching a mother and its offspring in the wild ever. These are two males, polar bears, sparring in the late fall, getting ready to go out on the ice again. Always waiting so fast, and the power that you see when they spar with each other. And it wasn't until somebody said, "Watch how they mouth," and the creation of how the mouths connect with one another. And it wasn't until they said that then that's when I started to anticipate and wait for that exact moment. It takes a lot of photos to get to this, but I finally did achieve it. Again, another unlikely pairing. This Arctic fox walked right up to this polar bear who was sleeping in his kelp bed. Any kind of movement for these polar bears at this time of year has to be worth it. They are conserving as much energy as they can so they can go out on the ice and hunt again. And as they wait, they oftentimes will lie in their kelp bed. And this little Arctic fox walked right up to it, had a giant poop right in front of it, and then ran away. So it's just sometimes we need the story behind the photo to make it a little bit more, or to have it achieve a little bit more impact. But kind of funny when you see these two unlikely characters, even though they spend a lot of time together in the Arctic, but just being able to capture them together was really, really cool for me. So now I'm going to talk about the expression and the eye to eye and leaving an impression. I mean, honestly, right, when we're taking portraits, most times I'm taking portraits of people looking at me. Same thing for animals. I want them to be looking at me. I love it when they're not, but I absolutely love it more when I can get that eye-to-eye contact. Sometimes when it's a polar bear looking at you directly from a different angle, upside down, a little bit intimidating, but kind of neat, and a different kind of shot as well. And that's one thing as photographers, that there's so much imagery that we're exposed to now on the internet, and I'm always looking at ways to photograph animals differently or find that behavior that I haven't seen before. So really important as photographers that we're searching to be different all the time from everybody else and create your own style. A black bear staring directly at me, kind of intimidating, coming up from feeding from a fish. Here's a grizzly bear in the Yukon, again, fishing, but just very curious. They're always keeping their eyes on us as well. So waiting, anticipating, again, I'm going to use those words over and over again. But as wildlife photographers, that's what we need to do. Here's a coastal wolf. I was able to go to Africa, go to Tanzania, then Uganda, and then I was able to go to Vancouver Island before coming home to all the world being changed to COVID. So very, very fortunate. This wolf ran away from its pack directly across from us and started howling at us for a good minute. Stared right at us, and it was incredible. I chose the howling photo for this presentation just because I'll never forget what it was like to hear that wolf howl directly at us for that time in their environment. It was overwhelmingly beautiful. I went out and I photographed red-winged blackbirds in the morning, early morning, and hearing their song, this sign of spring coming back. Just get out there and look and wait for this Darth Vader look from the red-winged blackbird, or the little fox looking directly at us. A leopard looking at us, with the intensity of the eyes. And here's the lion that we had to wait for because he was sleeping, just waiting for him to lift up that beautiful head and look directly at us. It was incredible. A chimp, again, just having this opportunity to see them in their environment. So grateful. This was just in Uganda a few months ago. So I would like to show you a video of some eye-to-eye images that I've done, and perhaps you can get connected to the animals that I've been fortunate enough to see. So of course, there's nothing more important than light and creating atmospheric images with beautiful illuminating light. I mean, that is really, it's not only the connection and the behavior in these beautiful animals in their environment, but really it's about the light. It all comes down to that opportunity and making sure that you're out there at the right time. Again, getting out of bed early, maybe going out later in the day, getting the magic of the sunset, that golden hour, the magic hour as they call it. Here's a perfect example. It was 5 o'clock in the morning out there. The sun is just peeking up over the hillside, and the two loons in synchronicity came out of the water. I've taken a lot of loon shots, and this was one I have not had again and had since. So I've only gotten one like this, and it's a pretty special one for me as well. Sometimes you're lucky photographing an eagle in the Great Bear Rainforest, and just, having that beautiful early morning sunrise that just peeked over the mountains and illuminated the eagle just so perfectly. The humpback whales and using backlight. I love blacklight with the animals. Beautiful way of capturing some moments and also showing the environment of where they're at, and of course all the spouting that is going on had just created such beauty with the backlight. Here's another coastal wolf on the island, and using reflections, always looking for reflections, the way that you can use water, the way that you can see these animals a little bit differently, add a little bit more dimension to your images as well. And not always going out in the sunlight and going out in the rain. I love to photograph the rain. I don't like getting wet. I don't like my cameras getting wet. Obviously, I have to stay protected. I protect my gear, but you can create some really magical, beautiful images in the pouring rain too. These are some of my favorite. Of course, when you're in the Great Bear Rainforest, it rains. So, you're going to get wet. Your camera's going to get a little wet. Just making sure that you're protected. I use think tank covers and as I'm in head to toe Arc'teryx and just making sure that you're in rain gear that's going to keep you dry, because that's the most important, that you want to feel comfortable when you're out there in these conditions as well. When it snowed in April, I ran out to try to find some wildlife in the snow. I wasn't much successful with anything but geese, but then the snow came down so hard that I was like, okay, I'll wait for them to fly and capture them in the snow. Not so easy with the focusing. Focus peaking with the mirrorless, this is where it really, really came in handy for me as well. I've shown this image many times. It's hard to do a presentation without showing it. It's a long story, so I'm not going to get into it today, but just waiting, anticipating, and using the available light that you have. We don't always have opportunity, we have opportunity to go out there and put ourselves out there, but we can't control the light. We can't control the animal behavior. In the studio, we can. When you're out in the wild, it's all up to them, and you have to be ready and take the chances. That's the other thing. I took a chance on this image. I had no idea what was happening. It happened so quick. I took the shot, and it's one of the best shots I've ever had taken, and it's a big part of my portfolio. And this is where light comes in beautifully with landscape. And again, it's about being out there at the right time, putting yourself in these beautiful landscapes and knowing and seeing. You can use the apps to gauge how the sun's going to rise, how it's going to set. Maybe you have a chance to shoot outside of an airplane window. I do that often. These are in the Great Bear Rainforest. It doesn't always have to be sunny. The clouds, the beauty of intensity of the clouds can really enhance your photos as well. So I go out oftentimes when it's cloudy, and I try to find these beautiful images that you can really create with the clouds that add a whole different dimension to your imagery as well. And again, looking for those reflections and using those reflections to really enhance your images. Or the light. Imagine this beautiful light coming through the trees in the Great Bear Rainforest. It was incredible. And the streaks. So I went far off, and I used a wide, and then I went closer, and this was taken with a 70-200 at the full 200 millimeter, just to narrow in and really concentrate and look at that light. A cottage evening, we were out on the deck. Oh my goodness, it was incredible. Ran upstairs. got my camera. I mean, this was just a completely magical scene. This is my paradise. I'm very, very fortunate and lucky to have a cottage with my family on Sherbet Lake. And I never take it for granted, that's for sure. And I never stop taking photos just because I see it so often. I go and I try to create differently every time that I'm out there. Looking at the way that light is hitting the icebergs, I've photographed a lot in the Arctic. This is one of my scenes. Imagine putting yourself there. And that's one of the things you want to do as well, is that you want to give your viewers an opportunity to say, hey, I want to be there. You want to place them there. You want them to imagine what it's like to be in that scenario, in that scene, in that beauty. These were images that I found. One of the things about being at home, I've been able to go through stock imagery that I've had in my hard drives that I haven't been able to access before because I'm always running to the next. I'm always running to the next travel opportunity. So it's great to be able to go through your images and with a new eye. And this was from a number of years ago up in Kikatarjuak that I went with my husband in April. And we were able to, run around the ice on a skidoo and be amongst these towering, beautifully colored, beautifully lit icebergs that were there. So another aspect is the fun, the joy, the happiness that you can bring people with your wildlife images, whether it's your pet, whether it's your animal, or with people. Sometimes that helps as well. But provide fun and interesting images that people can smile. There's nothing better than putting a smile on someone's face, right? Watching the interaction, waiting for the behavior. Again, these are all intimate portraits that I took that I waited and I watched and I had the time, which was very important and I'm very grateful for. And then once I saw that these puffins were all jumping off at the same time, then I waited for a cluster of them to go at the exact same time. And this just makes me smile, this image. I had little prairie dogs having a little conversation with each other in Grasslands National Park, or even turkeys in just a road not far away from my home, and saw them fanning and interesting behavior I had never seen before, and pretty cool to get them in a line, all walking directly to that female. They were all going for the same female. Seals in the Great Bear. I thought they were logs at first. I didn't even know they weren't moving. Again, I love, it's that eye-to-eye contact that you're seeing here, but it's also their glances, and that have 8 eyes on me at the same time. There was one where one of them were looking off, and so really neat that they're all looking. So I'm constantly looking and trying to photograph that as well. Maybe it's a fox in the middle of a hunt, or a polar bears. They're always fun to photograph and to see their behavior. They never, from their majestic, beautiful look to how they clean themselves and how they interact with one another, maybe what they do to stay amused while they're waiting for the ice to come in. Having snoozes and looking at you, and it makes me smile. And I think when we can connect with that, that's where you're going to attract more of your viewers, and you're going to get better at your image storytelling. That's my goal. This is kind of how I feel. I think they're calling it the COVID-15, or maybe it's after a big turkey dinner. Again, and that tongue coming out of the hippo as well as it's just big fat belly lying on the ground. I think we can all relate to this in one way or another. Not that I'm calling anyone porky or anything like that, but anyway, it's kind of how I'm feeling right now during COVID. So ultimately, if you have a cell phone, if you have whatever means you have, we are all visual storytellers. What a gift to be able to share this world with everybody, whether it's your family, your friends, what you made for dinner, whatever it is. Tell a story with your images. And that's what I've been trying to really focus on now, is that it's not just that one image, but it's a series of images, because we have storytelling through our stories on Instagram and Facebook, and you can share more than one image. And it's always hard to find that one image that might stand out more than the others, but storytell with your images as well and create a series so people can start to really understand and see what it was like to achieve that final result. These were 2 cubs in the Great Bear Rainforest, very curious. I was on the river's edge. He came right up to me. Of course, I had my 800, 500, and the 70 to 200. This was taken with the 70 to 200. We were so close. Very, very curious. Wonderful to watch this pair of cubs in in the Great Bear Rainforest interact with each other. And one of them was definitely stronger than the other, and he was a little bugger. We were calling him Bandit, because every time his mom caught a fish, he swooped in to catch it and take it away from her, and wouldn't let his sibling have it at all. So it was really cool to watch this behavior, and I created a story around it, showing how cute it is, and then how he just kept stealing and stealing and stealing the fish away from its mother, wouldn't let her have it. And then finally she just looked at him and just gave a big, huge growl. But ultimately, I think this is my favorite image from the series, is the way that he was holding on to that fish, and he wasn't letting mom or his sibling anywhere near it. And it's just one of those fun, interesting shots that I love from the series. And then we had Spirit Bear Boss, oh my goodness, in his environment, fishing. He was so incredible to watch, and he was very comfortable with us, spent a lot of time around us fishing, going after the salmon. And in fact, he started to fish off the bottom of the water, bottom of the river, for salmon roe. So he would stick his head underneath the water and come up and shake. And fortunately, when he did it the first time, unfortunately, I wasn't ready, but fortunately, he did a couple more times. So this series, he was looking directly at us, right in front of us. I had the 70-200. He'd stick his head underneath, he would eat the salmon, lift his head up, and then shake. And just waiting for that perfect moment. I had a longer lens on, and then I switched off to the 70-200 again, and this is the one that I absolutely love and I take away from that whole scene. And I fired off quite a number of frames just to get the head position right, but because of the dark background, the spray illuminated, and everything came together. And we all wait and anticipate for these moments or these magic images that can define us. And this is definitely one, like the walrus for me, that I came away with from our trip to the Great Bear that really made a difference. Okay, so now I want to show you a little video that I did. And I already spoke about when we take photos, when we take video. And I think if you're trying to tell a story, it's really important to be able to show it with movement as well. It helps a lot. And I encourage all of you, if you haven't tried your video capability on your cameras, whether you're shooting DSLR or mirrorless, to try shooting video. It really helps tell your story. So here's a little video that I did for the Great Bear Rainforest, and I hope you enjoy it. It gives you a little bit more in the feel, I think. Okay, so now we're moving from the Great Bear Rainforest to another rainforest that I had an opportunity to visit in February. I think I already spoke to you about it. I was able to go to the Uganda rainforest and visit the gorillas, which, if you've heard me speak at Contact or Profusion, oftentimes I get asked, where is it somewhere that you want to go that you haven't been to before? And before February, I always said Uganda and the gorillas and the chimps. So I was blessed to be able to have that opportunity. And it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. It was also one of the most challenging as well. I suffer from altitude sickness. I never get seasickness, so I can be on the water forever and ever, but I get altitude sickness, and I suffered from it badly. So I was really quite ill from that. I also, it was very, very hot, and it was incredibly challenging walking in the mountains when you're not feeling well, I have to say. It was one of the craziest things I've ever done. So we had, our first day we had to walk 3 hours, which wasn't too bad, I guess. There's some people that have had longer hikes than that. But what was challenging the most was not only the altitude sickness, but it was when we reached the gorillas, it started to torrential downpour with a thunderstorm. So I hadn't taken my camera out of the knapsack yet. That was on my porter. Thank God I had my porters. Oh my goodness, thank God they were there. And fortunately, I had my friend Chris who helped me. I had a cape around my backpack that was on his back. I had taken off my lens cover. Never do that because it wasn't raining. Always be ready. I paid for it because now I had to get my camera out of the backpack, put on my lens cover in the torrential downpour, and I only had an hour with the gorillas. Our group only had an hour. It had already started, so countdown was on. So fortunately, Chris held the rain cape over top of the backpack, and I was able to get out my camera, put on the lens cover, because it was just, it was torrential downpour. And without that, I don't know what I would have done, really. And everything happened so quickly. And we had gorillas all around us. And for me, I think this was one of the most significant images that I came away with. It's not one of those shoots that you come away with thousands of images. You have an hour. It has to be very intricate. It was very dark, so I had to up my ISO to about 4,000. I tried to stay below it. Fortunately, with the in-camera stabilization, I was able to shoot at a slightly slower shutter speed than I would have normally, and really opened up wide to 2.8 with the 70-200. Really, everything happened so quickly, and fortunately, I think because I have so much experience in my pocket, like over 30 years, it really helped me in this situation. But this, for me, was one of the most significant. Just that eye and that connection that I had to these animals. It was not only a really great photo opportunity, but it was a really great human opportunity. What a gift to be able to see these mountain girls in their environment. Something that I had dreamt of, something that I had wanted to do for as long as I can remember. So again, very, very grateful. I never take anything for granted to have these opportunities. And if anyone of you want to see these beautiful creatures, I highly recommend the adventure, because that's what it is. It was an adventure. I had to think very, very quickly. This blackback was so, he was our star, and he was making his bed out in the rain. And then he was cleaning himself, and he was picking his nose, and he was eating it. He farted. He did all kinds of really amazing behavior that we connect to. We are them. I mean, was 98% shared DNA with these animals? It might be more. I'm sorry that I'm not entirely sure of the exact number, but yeah, their hands, the behavior, wow, it was incredible to watch, to see these little babies with their moms and how she would care for them, sitting there just like we do with our own children, showing us and teeth and almost like smiling and yawning. And one of the things that happened that was pretty incredible. I had dreamt that a silverback came and put his arm around me and I wasn't able to take a photo. I had dreamt that, and secretly I kind of wanted that to happen. Didn't have to be a silverback, but anyway, it didn't happen. But when I was staring at this blackback, we really connected, and I'm sure my group felt the same way. He was looking in our direction, and I really felt a connection. And I put my camera down, and I just said, you know what? I want to look eye to eye with this magnificent creature. And he got up, and he walked right in my direction. And I thought, oh, this is it. He's coming over. He's going to sit next to me. He's going to touch me. He's going to pick up my hair. All the videos that I had seen before, I'm going to have a dream come true even more. Well, he walked right past me, and this is what happened. This was taken on his cell phone by a friend of mine that was with us. And it shows the gorilla walking right by me, right by a few others. And then he pushed Chris right in the back and sent her flying. It was unbelievable. She cried with absolute delight. Nobody was hurt. He just walked off. But it was just one of those unbelievable moments. And I was so glad that Chris got it. Secretly, I wanted it to be me, but that's okay. Maybe next time, because I'm going to go back. Absolutely, even though I was so sick. So here's a little video. Again, it was really hard to decide when to do video, when to do photos, but I needed to see and remember what it was like to see these animals live. So here's a little video that I put together, very short, but it gives you an idea of what we experienced when we were there. So I'm heading into our last section of my presentation, creating emotional impact. And this time I'm focusing on people. And I have been a portrait photographer since the very beginning. As much as I love wildlife, I love taking pictures of people. And when I came back from Vancouver Island, I was self-isolating for about 5 weeks. And I just felt compelled to go downtown and photograph the streets, the emptiness, and the history that was happening right before our eyes during COVID-19. So I went down and I was walking along and absolutely devastated to look in the windows and see all the signs closed, imagining all these businesses that are empty. And likewise, business person not having an opportunity to work, and trying to stay creative, but also knowing that, we don't know what's ahead. We don't know what the future is. And I really wanted to document that. And fortuitously, I ran into a friend of mine. And she was out walking her dog, and she has a store on Sussex, right in the Byward Market. And I had been thinking about her when I was looking into the storefronts that I was seeing. And we looked at each other, and really we just were high. It wasn't the embrace, it was staying our distance. She had a mask on. And it was this raw, beautiful conversation that we shared about what we were experiencing, about the future of business, about the future of our planet. It was tearful, it was raw. And I asked her right then, can I take your photo? So I sat her down in front of her store, and I took this rather sombering photo of Mandy Goswich. She's not this at all. I mean, she's vibrant and fun and beautiful and out there and so incredibly vibrant all the time. And to see her like this, it really had an impact. So that night I was talking to my husband, I was telling him about it, and we were talking about how they are now responding to calls as firefighters. My husband's a fire chief. And he was talking about how different it was for them, and that they were conserving N95 masks because they were keeping them, they didn't want to use them, so the hospitals had some supply. So he was telling me how they were dressing to go and photograph, oh my goodness, they're not photographing, they're going to save people. So I asked if I could go and photograph one of the firefighters in the getup, because they actually are wearing their SCBAs, so their self-contained breathing apparatus, when they go to medical calls, fully suited up. And again, this is one of those images that I took. I came back and I went, oh, this is incredible. And I decided to photograph in black and white because we are in a black and white world right now. That's the way I feel. Lots of deep, dark shadows, lots of bright highlights, and a lot of gray in between. And I know we'll see in color again. I know I will see it in color again. But for now, I wanted to photograph these people in black and white. And I came back and I went, I'm going to do more. I want to show the real world out there, and I want to document history in the making, and all safely, obviously. And Planet Hope began, and it's been 3.5 weeks. I've done all kinds of photos of different people. I've pulled from my photo bank as well, so I haven't had to go out. And if I do go out, then I try to do as much as I can in the same area, all in a safe distance, and certainly working within all the guidelines as well. This is a homeless man on the streets of downtown. First thing out of his mouth was, I hope to be off of the streets soon. Paramedics and how they have to go to calls now. All these stories are on my Instagram page that I made at Planet Hope Canada. I don't have the time to go through them all with you, the stories, but I do hope that you go have a look at my Instagram page or Facebook, Michelle Valberg Photography. I'm posting these every day, from grocery workers to doctors. This is how, imagine being greeted. I hope that you haven't if you're looking at this, and I hope you don't have to go to the hospital. Having conversations with these real people, these heroes that are out there keeping us safe and healthy. My father-in-law, who's 86, and we're worried about him every single day, no matter how healthy he is. Nurses that are on the floors every single day. This was taken at our Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario by a wonderful, well-loved nurse named Doug. Security workers. Rick is, working every single day, putting his life at risk for all of us to stay safe. The beautiful McKenna, who's a healthcare worker, and she's also a hoop dancer. And she is and has moved out of her home to live in the residence because her mother is compromised with her immune system. So in order to keep her mother and her family safe, she's moved to the residence because they need her, she says. And she loves them, and she wants to be there to support them through this crisis. So I ask you all, if you will, if you want to know more, please go to Planet Hope Canada on Instagram or to my Facebook page. I'm also posting on Twitter and LinkedIn. It's a social media campaign. I'm featuring somebody new every single day. Stay creative during this time. Always, look, see differently, and really look at the way that you can create that emotional impact. And, it is the keystone to really great imagery, and I think we all have it in us. We're great visual storytellers. We have these opportunities, and I hope you take them. And thank you for joining us, and thank you to Nikon for featuring me for the Contact Festival. This is a very different opportunity to sit in front of a camera without a live audience. I so feed off of you when you're in front of me, and anyway, I'm sure we'll be doing that again soon. So take care, stay safe, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, and stay well.